It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
And matter of fact, because it's tax day, I want to introduce you to the author of an upcoming book, Middle Class Millionaire, Surprisingly Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth. His name, Clark Kendall. Clark, welcome to the program this morning.
Paul, I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad that you're with us. It's April 15th. We've been talking about taxes pretty much all day. But we do have some good news in that we have the Trump tax cuts. This is the first time people are realizing the Trump tax cuts, practically. So you think it's being well received? I mean, what has Donald Trump's tax plan done for the average person?
Well, the tax plan has done different things for different people. If you're, we've got right now still 44% of Americans don't pay income taxes. I mean, we do have payroll tax, but as far as income tax, we still have almost half the people not paying income tax. If you make less than about $120,000, you're seeing actually a tax cut for yourselves. If you make basically $120,000 to $200,000, you're seeing a little bit actually of an increase because you're doing away with that state income tax deduction, or you're limited to only $10,000 when coupled with your real estate taxes. So it's a win for some, and it's a slight loss for others. But in all, we got to just play with the new rules and move forward.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the three biggest changes are for the middle class taxpayers, and how would you recommend they take advantage of those?
Well, that's a great question. As far as three changes, I think differently about doing your charitable deductions. I think because we have the standard deductions, it's $12,000 for an individual, $24,000 for a couple. If you're giving to charities, which the middle class is a generous giver to charities, you might consider bunching them together, using a donor advised fund, or if you're retired, taking what they call a qualified charitable deduction straight from your IRA account, and then you can still take the standard deductions. So those are some of the biggest things that people need to think differently in the middle class.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's standard that doubling of the standard deduction for couples. I mean, that's got to be a pretty big deal for a lot of folks.
Oh, it is a big deal, and also, if you, one of the big things that's changed this year has been the tax credits for children, utilizing the tax credit instead of a tax deduction. That's a huge advantage that individuals need to be taking advantage of.
Mm-hmm. What about? Let's talk about this postcard. I mean, I've done my taxes already. There was no postcard. What are your thoughts on this new simple postcard?
I think it's actually, quite frankly, I think it's crazy. First of all, I wouldn't want to put my tax ID number. You talk about security just being mailed through, through the U.S. mail. And secondly, Americans spend more time planning their summer vacation than planning their retirement. And I think what really differentiates the middle class for the middle class millionaires is the millionaires have a heart. They care about others, and they make a decision to save, for their children's college education through a 529, or they save for a spouse so that they can enjoy retirement. So I think people need to spend a little more time than just filling out a postcard and mailing their taxes in.
Let's talk about your book, Middle Class Millionaire. What made you want to write this, Ken or Clark?
Well, that's fine. Clark Kent is almost like Superman.
Yeah.
I get confused many a times. So that's great. No, I've been an investment advisor for 30 years, and it's a great job because I can look at life backwards. And I think what we do have, I see more and more kind of hardworking teachers, policemen, and firemen, who basically set a little bit of money aside. They start early, and we have many of them, middle class, who have $1 million, $2 million of investable assets. And this is a book on how to, but it's also, I share stories about how people approach your life in different means and manners. And, I had a guy who worked for AT&T He recently passed away, but he goes, Clark, I don't understand. I never made more than $40,000 a year working for AT&T, yet I receive $100,000 a year in dividends. And it's just that long-term compounding effect that can make a difference in people's lives, and it gives them options. And I think that's the beauty of this book. With finances, you have options to do different things that you don't have if you don't have money set aside.
So it's not out yet, is it, Clark?
It's not out. You can pre-order it on Amazon. Middle Class Millionaire: Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth.
Nice. All right, so let's talk about the state and local deduction. Back on the Trump tax cuts. So you've got states like Maryland and California. They could be paying a lot more in their taxes, and quite frankly, states like Arkansas too. We've got very, very high income taxes here, respectively. Compared to our other states that touch our borders. What are your thoughts on this SALT deduction no longer existing?
Well, I think it puts a real problem on the states, because there are states like Texas and Florida that have South Dakota that have no state income taxes. And I actually, with the internet, you can call Bill Jones's office and be transferred to Bill Jones, who works in a different state. So I think states need to kind of rethink how they're taxing individuals, and they'll probably eventually, if I could guess out 20 years, they're going to change from an income tax revenue source to basically user tax. I think we'll see property taxes go up and user taxes go up into the future. So I think our state legislators need to be thinking, 10 and 15 years from now, as far as how these changes are going to affect individuals and their behavior.
What is the gig economy? Can you define that for us and tell us if you are kind of self-employed, how the Trump tax cuts work out in your favor?
Well, there are certain industries, and I think we could give a whole dissertation on this, but to change individuals from an S corporation or sole proprietor to a C corporation, and then basically they jump down to the 21% tax bracket. But this is really something not to try to do on April 15th, because you really need to talk to an accountant and attorney, because there are some long-term implications, not just a few months, but few years going out. So, but I do think if you're in certain industries, you need to go and really look at whether or not it makes sense to change your tax structure moving forward.
Okay, so when it comes to being self-employed, and if you're in one of these, if you have an LLC or something like that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Clark, but I was pretty sure that Trump had an actual business, like a business tax cut in there as well. Is that right?
That's correct. You go the S corporation, sole corporations, it passes on to the individual return, but for certain industries you can change to a C corporation where it has a lower tax bracket.
Wow.
As I said, there are some strict criteria that you really need to talk to an attorney and accountant before trying to do that.
Well, folks, Clark Kendall is the name. He's the author of the upcoming book, Middle Class Millionaire: Surprisingly Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth. Clark, I really appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, and as we celebrate this tax day, April 15th.
Great, Paul. Honored to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, sir, very much. We appreciate it.